I want to start with you on the topic du jour, which is Facebook, and obviously they have found themselves in a storm of controversy over a lot of things: privacy, election manipulation, fake news, tech addiction. Where do you think Facebook has gone wrong in this?
Where they've gone wrong?
Controversy.
I won't say, they may be in a bad position. I won't say they went wrong. They had a fundamental proposition that everybody in the world should be able to communicate and connect. That's a very good proposition. Now what we're seeing is some of the downsides of that, and they're going to have to get on top of it quickly. When I saw these things in the software business, a lot of great things happening, and then we had a security crisis. Had to get on top of all of the security issues. They now have an equivalent set of issues. And so the question isn't what they did wrong. The question now is, what will they do right to address the issues, not only of their customers, but also of regulators, et cetera.
But is it too late, too little, too late? I mean, you have former Facebook employees, saying delete Facebook.
I think if you just looked at last quarter's results, it would be hard to say it's too late. Mm-hmm. They still have a lot of momentum in their business and their user accounts. I certainly don't think it's too late, and they're smart people. I've spent a lot of time over the years, a good amount of time with both Cheryl and Mark, and I think they'll be very resilient in figuring this out. Well,
Washington has certainly perked up. There's new legislation been proposed and more regulation looming. Are you concerned about that, or do you think tech does need to be better regulated?
I would say it differently. Whether tech needs to be, quote, regulated or not, I think there are issues on which citizens have a point of view, and they have to be protected a little bit from commercial interests. I do think that's better. I think it's better done through a regulation process than a legislative process, because nobody knows what the rules should be. If I put up on Facebook right now that there's an earthquake in LA, which there is not, I have the right to express that. On the other hand, that kind of thing can cause adverse interaction. So there really will need to be a smart discussion between Facebook and whether it's the FTC or other appropriate regulator.
Any concern, you hold Twitter, you hold Microsoft, any concern about how tech regulation could impact? Let's start with Twitter, where shares actually were punished as Facebook shares went down as well, simply because it's a similar business.
Well, financially, I guess you'd say I'm fortunate. I actually sold my Twitter stake.
You did?
Yeah, I sold
all of it.
I'm sure I own some in index funds, but I did. I decided, A, I'm not really excited as a profession to be an investor. Great thing to do, but probably not for me. And B, the price looked pretty good.
So you've sold the vast majority of your Twitter stake.
But as a Microsoft, sorry, go ahead.
What's your outlook for Twitter then, now?
I still remain bullish about Twitter in the long run, whether it's an acquisition or something else. And I decided I was going to simplify my life and not have to be a Twitter investor, spending time on every call, studying the numbers. I could make my return and simplify my life. But there's risk in front of Twitter. I knew that when I bought my stake to get started. Microsoft, I do maintain my stake.
Right, and they just reported earnings, strong growth in the cloud, but still very far behind Amazon.
And they do far behind in one business, far ahead in another. So to be fair, my old colleagues are doing a great job, and yet they do have room with their Azure product to catch up with AWS. But what I would say there is there are a number of privacy, data security issues. They span geographies, and the willingness to engage with regulators globally to be willing on important matters to go through litigation, which the company has done. That'll be important for figuring out really what the framework is that allows the cloud to flourish commercially and globally. And I think Microsoft, Brad Smith at the helm as president, have done a really amazing job in helping drive that discussion.
Microsoft Chair John Thompson was on the show yesterday saying he'd be supportive of big buys like LinkedIn because LinkedIn has been wildly successful. That was a big buy. Would you like to see Microsoft make more big acquisitions like that? As
a shareholder, I don't come in with that predisposition. I'm not against it, but there's a lot of things out there that are too expensive. The LinkedIn results have been good. Microsoft paid a large price for LinkedIn. Do the results yet support the valuation, maybe, maybe not. It is a great asset, and I'm glad Microsoft owns it in that context. But there's a lot of things you could overpay for today, and so per se, no, I'm not in favor of big acquisitions. On the other hand, as a shareholder, I don't come in and say, I don't think the company should do any.
A trade war is looming. Is that good or bad for our country?
I am a free trader, I'm an economics major in school, and yet there are situations in which I don't think free trades work. The Chinese, in China, Microsoft, when I left, was losing about 8 to 10 billion of revenue and profit because of piracy in China. Something had to be done. And unless there's pressure from the US government, nothing was going to happen. That's not really free trade. That's asymmetric in the sense you get piracy on one side. And I don't mean like taking intellectual property secrets. I mean literally just stamping out and using software that has been stolen. I don't think that's okay, and I think it will require some government pressure. So while I am a free trader, I see some opportunities to rectify some of the kind of non-competitive behaviors of some of the country's trading partners.
How so?
Will the US government really put pressure on the Chinese to pay for intellectual property that it uses? That is an opportunity. We don't have real free trade if companies like Microsoft and others are literally having tens of billions of dollars stolen from them in China.
Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, had said that Alibaba would create 1 million jobs in the US, but has warned those jobs won't be created if this happens. In fact, he said a trade war would kill jobs, opportunity, and hope. How do you respond to that?
I am a free trader. There will definitely be jobs that don't become available, but there are going to be a lot of jobs created in the United States also. You give Microsoft another $8 billion of revenue, you think there's going to be no jobs created? There's going to be so many jobs created. So you can't say, well, free trade. We don't have free trade with China right now. There's job creation by getting real free trade with China, and there could be some issues introduced. So I find this one terribly complicated, and it goes against my religious belief, if you will, in free trade, but there could be some advantages.
So do you think Trump's doing a good job?
That's a broad question. Every citizen has to decide that individually. I certainly don't like the rhetoric. Put policies aside. Rhetoric that gets extreme doesn't seem helpful or valuable to me. Tough negotiating positions, trade, maybe, maybe not. Everybody go make their own decision, and yet what I'll call the rough rhetoric certainly not okay by me.
USA Facts, you recently held a shareholder call for taxpayers, and by and large you think America is working. What's not working?
The thing that troubles me most is this notion that kids born into economically disadvantaged situations really have very little prospect of moving up from where their parents were. There are kids in America who don't really have a chance at the American dream. That to me is really not okay. That has not gotten better. I mean, crime rates are down, which is a fantastic thing. Life expectancy's up, even though the average length of time that people live has not increased much in the last 18 years. But there's a lot to be enthusiastic about. But this notion that the American dream doesn't exist for poor kids, or at least a lot of poor kids, not okay by me.